Hello and welcome to another episode of the Cosmic Ghost Show, motherfuckers. We are here to be your modern guide to yourself and the universe, and we do that through all kinds of ways, but we also do that with our very special guest. Like we have today on the show, welcome Faith Streng to our podcast. We're so happy to have you.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here.
Yes. So let's read about your amazing background, how you got here, and then we're going to dive into some of that. So essentially what I could gather is that you are a third generation intuitive healer, which is wild because I think I'm definitely first generation. And you work with spiritual seekers, entrepreneurs, and visionaries who've been on their journey for some time, but they still feel like they could be aligning with more of everything. And that's where you step in and you really, I've worked with you like in various ways and like also like we hung out a little as well. And I just really like the deep wisdom that you hold, but also like this very like energy. And I think like the oldest and wisest of souls are like that. Like you can tell like there's so much depth and ability to them. It's scary, but then they have this like wondrous, je ne sais quoi buoyance of personality that you could literally float upon into the cosmos. And so it's a pleasure to know you, to have you here. And I'd love to dive right in. So like, could you tell us how did you even come to a point where you knew that you wanted to be a healer? And can you tell us what it means by having, these two other generations like beyond you, and what did that look like? Who were they and how did it influence you?
Yeah. Thank you so much for the intro. And I'm so excited to be diving into this. Everything you said about me, I just feel about you too. So it has to be said.
Oh,
And I think like a lot of people thought my life was going to go in a very different direction. And eventually things became unsustainable for me. I was unhappy. I was unhealthy and knew that I had to give up the path that I had been walking before that I was so convinced was right for me. And that's when this knowledge from my lineage, these modalities I was raised with came back around, and I was so inspired to see what could be created from them. And that's when I went full time with my spiritual business, pulling from this past life healing that I was raised with, this channeling that is also in my lineage, and combining it with my teachings as a Reiki master and then my own intuitive studies into what I do now, which I just put under the helm of multidimensional healing or Akashic healing. When you are putting so many things together, what do you call it? And so my mother and my grandmother practiced a modality that was called spiritual response therapy. That is a form of past life healing that uses charts and a pendulum to identify and clear traumas that have happened in other lifetimes, as well as the subconscious beliefs that are holding us back from joy and abundance and expansion as a result of those traumas. So they started doing that work with me when I was about 5. I was exposed to these very big concepts when I was very young: the body, mind, spirit connection, angel, the past lives, future lives, lifetimes in other dimensions. And it was just a part of my worldview. I started reading the Hay House authors when I was a teenager. So Louise Hay was very known to me, and Wayne Dyer and Eckhart Tolle. Those books were all floating around my house. And then my grandfather, who died when I was 3, was part of a rather famous channeling group in Detroit, Michigan in the 70s. So I get this kind of galactic connection from him as well, which I love. He's definitely a guide who comes back around from time to time when he's not traversing the cosmos. And so my mom and I are very, very, very close. My grandmother and I were close too. And I have really been able to take what they taught me and then bring it to this next level, which has been very, very, very exciting and fun for me.
Oh my God, I've now got so many questions that weren't even on my notes. I told you I'd go off these. That's incredible. Oh, so many things, so many things. Okay. So how does what you do, how you operate now with your services different to what they did? And how did you know that you wanted to evolve beyond?
Mm-hmm. When I started my spiritual business, I actually started as a Reiki practitioner for animals and then for people. And I felt there was Akashic healing happening during those sessions. One of the ways they are taught in spiritual response therapy to connect to high self, spirit, Holy Spirit, whatever you want to call it, is through your eye blinks, being in a relaxed state and being able to get yes or no answers or other information through your eye blinks. So during my Reiki sessions, my eyes would be blinking ferociously, and I knew there were things coming through, but I didn't really investigate it at all. And then as I just started to play and explore, I started to find that the chakra system was an entryway into the Akashic records, that things that happened in other lifetimes can affect our energy systems now. For example, if there's been trauma in childbirth in another lifetime, there can be issues in the sacral chakra in this lifetime. If there has been immense heartbreak or grief in another lifetime, that can affect the heart chakra and everything it controls in this lifetime. I'm sure you found um, experiences and connections like that in your work too.
Mm.
So I rather quickly, when I evolved from Reiki into feeling this call to work more in past lives, feeling like there was really a need for that. When I started my business in that way, there weren't as many people doing that as there are now. And so now I use the charts just sporadically, but because I've been exposed to this level of healing for so long, how it has manifested for me is it's very easy for me to tap into the Akashic records at this point. I can just do it in a waking state. I think you work rather similarly. And I often will start with the energy centers to enter into the Akasha in that way. And from there, there's always spiritual life coaching that comes from that, because of course, past life healing is so much more than a party trick. There's a reason that specific one is coming up at that time. And then from there, we also are connecting to the spiritual guides of my team, of my client, and allowing them to understand who's really there supporting them as well. So I combine a lot more. It's a lot more all encompassing experience, and then using just the charts and the pendulum. And that work really gets into some really inaccessible material where you just go, I cannot understand this with my conscious mind, but I know that there's a lot of healing happening in these charts right now. And it's important for me to make my work as accessible as possible too, and to make these concepts more available to people who are coming to them for the first time, or looking for a deeper understanding of what they've already been studying for a very long time. So at this point, I don't rely on any tools. It's just coming through me in the moment in a conversational space with my client.
Yeah, that makes sense. And, like literally downloading as you go. Yeah, like you said, very similar way that I work as well. I'd love to know, like, what do you mean by the charts that they work with? Like, what kind of charts were they?
They are, well, I can just show you. Should I just show you? Yeah. So there's 31 charts, and they all look something like this. So you hold the pendulum right here, and the pendulum will go to whatever arm. So, and they all look relatively the same. And for example, this chart is called Soul Qualities, Themes, and Challenges. And it has things on here like personal integrity, money and income, recreation and play. And so this chart is about identifying themes that have followed you in many lifetimes that have resulted in conflict or contrast for you. A lot of people have programs that are causing them to resist recreation and play, right? Or life meaning is fraught with weight and urgency for them. And when we can go into the charts and go, let's just clear all the lifetimes where that BS was going on, so that we can come into a natural flow of energy, trust in the divine, and allow our gifts and our joy to lead the way. So all the charts are some variation of that. And anybody can find them on Amazon. You can go to the Spiritual Response Therapy website and they're completely available. Anyone could buy this book and learn how to do it themselves if they want to.
Very cool. I'm quite intrigued by that. I rarely work with pendulums or charts, but I feel like quite cool from a curiosity stance just to have a look. They look very cool.
Mhm.
I'd love to chat a little bit as well. Well, there's two directions I want to go. I want to learn more about your grandfather because you said galactic, and that obviously has me hooked. And then but before we go there, I'd love to just chat about like what were you doing before you went full time on your business, and how did you end in that direction?
Mm. From the time I was 5 years old, I always wanted to be an actor. And I started acting professionally very young. And I felt so grateful that I found my calling. I knew my purpose. I knew what my gifts were and how I was going to offer healing to the world through my performances, and had my whole path stretched out for me I'll do regional theater and I'll do commercials on the side, and won't my life be beautiful? I studied very hard. I went to a performing arts high school. I got my BFA in acting. And then I was like, okay, well, now I'm ready, right? We can get going here. And it just never happened for me for a lot of different reasons. But I had a lot of health issues as well. And I was in chronic pain for a very long time due to a birth abnormality. So I was bartending, I was waiting tables, I was catering, and I got to the point where I was starting to book some work, and I realized I hated it. I was living in Los Angeles and I didn't like how helpless that experience made me feel. You have to be available all the time. You have to have another form of income, no matter what level of success you achieve. Unless you're an A-lister, you have to have another job. And because I was also living in so much pain, that was making the way I was earning money unsustainable for me. And then I realized that this childhood dream I had, it was just romanticized and it didn't really exist. And so it was a very big deal for me to admit that I didn't know what was right for me, to admit that I had been wrong or needed that training and needed that experience. I see that now to get me to where I am. But the giving up, the willing to surrender something that we have held on to so tightly and we've believed in so fervently, being willing to surrender that and allow it to burn to the ground is the 0 point from which something new and really exciting and more aligned can be birthed. So I had the experience of being willing to give it up, and then took about 3 months of, well, I don't know what to do. Do I go back to school? Do I manage a restaurant? Like, I have a BFA in acting. I'm literally not prepared to do anything else. And then one day it just started to simmer, and then it rose to the surface, and I started to remember how much I loved talking about spiritual shit, and I loved doing spiritual things. I had my Reiki training at that point, and it just eventually just all rushed in that this is really where I was supposed to be focusing. And then in March of 2020, that changed everything for so many of us. That's when I really knew that I needed to devote myself full time for this, because the world was changing and I was in a position, with having worked in the Akashic Records for 30 years at that point, that I had a perspective that could offer people comfort and confidence and empowerment. And I just started showing up online, and things took off pretty quickly. And now I'm in the position that I am today of having a global community, of hosting retreats, of constantly learning and growing, both as an entrepreneur and as a healer and as a student myself and a mystic myself. And it really came from that willingness to totally surrender.
Yeah, right. Yeah, from the 0 point. I like that term.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
amazing. And what was it like growing up with the birth defect? And was that ever healed?
Mm. It has been now. I was born with a dislocated left hip, and I had two operations on it when I was young. And then finally had a total hip replacement in 2021. So since then, I have been pain free, and that has been such an important part of my journey in being able to discuss how Western medicine and alternative modalities and traditional medicine all work together. I'm very clear that there are health challenges that you are not gonna manifest yourself out of. And that's what all these modalities are there for. But I also am able to understand that there is a genetic lineage, but also to me that indicates ancestral trauma. And my entire life has been about teaching me to slow down because I just want to go so fast. And so the hip socket as part of the greater sacral chakra for me has been my way to get more in touch with my divine feminine energy, balancing my emotions, emotional regulation, and knowing that this energy center is a big part of my mission with learning to embody and nurture in this lifetime. And that after the surgery was done, then this energy was really able to flow through my body in new ways. And my entire life just opened up. And I have so much compassion for anyone who's experienced chronic pain because it's nearly impossible to think about anything else or do anything else at that time. And I'm immensely, immensely grateful that miracles happened for me to get the surgery done that I needed. But that completely shaped me as a person and a healer.
Yeah, no, I bet it did. And I can't imagine being in chronic pain that long. And maybe it's why did it take so long to have that big operation to prevent the pain
Mhm.
any further? How come you couldn't do it earlier?
I, in my mind, it was something that I would do when I was an appropriate age to get a hip replacement. There was a part of me that thought everyone was in that much pain and I was just being really weak about it. I also didn't have health insurance for a really long time.
Right.
And also, when I was really young and I had those operations, hip surgeries only lasted 7 years, or hip replacements only lasted 7 years. So it was in my mind to also wait as long as possible. But now, this bad girl's going to last me 40 years is my plan. So it's pretty amazing how far medicine has come and continues to evolve. But so there were a lot of reasons that it just didn't work out. And when it did happen, I was married, right? It was during COVID. My husband was able to be there to support me. We had health insurance. I was working for myself. I didn't have to, so it all worked out exactly as it was meant to in the end.
That's incredible. I didn't know that about you. That's like insane. Like I already thought you was amazing. Like now I'm like, you are a fucking cosmic superwoman, motherfucker.
Yes.
And also, what was your favorite non-traditional? Well, you say it's non-traditional, but it's all traditional, isn't it? But what's your favorite non-traditional healing method that helped you the most?
Ooh, there's so many. I mean, besides past life healing, Akashic healing, which again, my mother has been doing for me for so long. When I started doing things for myself, I found acupuncture to be extraordinarily beneficial for me. Um, Going on my Reiki journey was also powerful and transformative. That opened up a lot for me. And then also working with flower remedies was also really an exciting part of my journey and something that I'm really eager to continue to learn about and dive more deeply into for myself.
Yeah, that sounds like a whole other podcast left to do about flower remedies. That's some like real fucking fairy magic right there.
Sure is. It sure is. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Crazy. Like there's so many herbs and and plants that go into everything that heals. Just for some reason when I hear flower remedies, I'm like, oh, fairies.
I get it. 'Cause they're like magic potions. They're like literally magic potions.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I can see everything is like, even though like, the medicinal mushrooms and all that. Like that's magic potions too, isn't it? It's no different.
Oh,
But yeah. What's your favorite mushroom apart from? I mean, mine's magic, but
um, no, I mean, I've been on a little bit of a lion's mane kick recently, but it changes. Like it goes in and out with different ones. Yeah.
depends what you need. Yeah, I love
Depends on what I
them.
need.
Yeah, I've always like I'm self-certified, self-diagnosed autistic, and I've always been looking for ways to help my brain with that because I don't want to A, get diagnosed, and B, get the medicine from, again, traditional routes. So I've been like looking with different ways to help that in the ADHD, and lion's mane's been incredible for it. It's like really
Oh,
just brings everything down.
oh, amazing. Oh, I'm so happy for you.
So that and ashwagandha, like ashwagandha
Oh,
changed the freaking game. But I didn't know you're not supposed to take it every day. Apparently it's
oh, yeah, yeah. Did you have consequences or did you have symptoms at all?
like,
You just
I
found out
nothing. I was like loving my life. And then TikTok was like, I mean, I don't know if I should be taking advice from TikTok, but that's how I even got into ashwagandha. I did change my life. And then people on TikTok were like, no, it's like, I don't know if it's like something with testosterone, like where I don't know, you start growing hair out your forehead or your, I don't know, whatever. But like apparently you've got to treat it in the way you would microdose every 3 to 4 days is better. So anyways, we digress. What would you say on your spiritual journey? So I want to talk about your grandfather. What would you say has been some of the most pivotal and profound moments on your spiritual journey?
Mm. The first time I felt the presence strongly of otherworldly beings, which I was on a hike and I felt the presence of my grandfather. And I knew that he was coming to me because he was opening the door for something else to come to me. And I'd never had an experience like that before. But I knew he was arriving because he was preparing me or letting me know that something else was coming in. And immediately after that, I felt another presence. And I'm just on this like public hike, in urban Los Angeles. And I knew there were Atlantean guides with me. And I don't know how I knew it, but my claircognizance just came online. And I felt so grateful. And I felt like I was vibrating. And I don't recall anything else that happened or any other information that came in. I knew that this was a new beginning, but I came home and I was in this what felt like a little bit of an altered state, and my husband was home and I just started crying, and I was like, I don't know why I'm crying, and he's so sweet. I think I tried to tell him. I mean, he must have been like, who did I marry? What is happening here? But no, he's on board with everything. But that was a really moving experience. um Another one was just this past September, I hosted a retreat in Ireland, and we went to Newgrange, which is an ancient burial mound and very powerful energy vortex as well. And when you go to Newgrange, you go to this other place first, which is called Noth, which is a set of smaller burial mounds. And you can walk on top of one of them. And as I was standing on top of it, I felt time collapse. I felt time merge. I was feeling this presence of the people who had built the mounds, the farmers who were farming on top of it for years and years before they realized anything was underneath it, and the people who visited it. It was just all happening at once. And that was a very exciting and trippy experience. That was definitely the most powerful energy vortex that I've ever been to. Mm. And then the third one was also either last year or this year. I don't recall when it occurred first, but when I had the feeling of tuning into all of my concurrent parallel lives, and that we were all able to work together like a coven, and that there was a lifetime where I was further along on my spiritual journey and lifetimes where I, was kind of struggling. And so at different times, I was called to be of service to this one aspect of myself. And other times I was asking for help from this different aspect of self. And of course, all time is happening at once, but we have to break them down a little bit in order to for our human minds to understand it. So these lifetimes happening in these other realms was being able to tune into all of them, offered healing for myself, allowed me to be of service to myself in new and really wild, exciting ways.
That is so incredible. And it's so wild when you speak to people that work with the same modalities. I'm the same. I have a bunch of us in parallel lives, but we're in a conference like the UN, and the people, the versions of me that need help, which some, I don't know if you found it, they can be different color skin to you, like blue people, like some of them are guys, like all of that, right? Like you're not the same in everyone. And then the person that needs help or has something to say goes on the stage, they'll be all looking at them. So yeah, less of a common, more of a conference with that one.
I love it. Oh my gosh, I love it. It's so cool to talk to you about this because you're, experiencing so much of the same thing. And I love
Yeah.
that. It's a conference or a coven or somewhere in between.
It's so cool. What have you got, like a favorite version of you outside of you in the other timelines whose life you'd like to experience?
Not really. They're just because I kind of feel like I get to experience all of them, and I'm pretty I'm pretty grateful and satisfied with what I'm doing now. Then I kind of feel like I get to tune in and experience whatever else I might want to.
So cool. Yeah, exactly. And you're happy where you are now. I had an interesting download about a year ago where I got told that I'm one of those people from another dimension, from the other life. And I stepped in to help a version of me that wasn't going to survive it. Because she's very suicidal. And that was at 18 and we swapped, and it was a really pivotal moment that we like swapped out. So I don't know where she thinks she's in this other dimension. And I remember life just feeling so different after 18. And because I was strong enough to help with how hard this life is, but she wasn't. But there's been times where I've been like, fuck this, I want to go back to Arcturus, like many starseeds. It's like, I'm done, I know what's on the other side. But she's less suicidal and more like, you're just conscious of like how hard it is compared to the other planets, right? And a lot of starseeds say the same thing. But yeah, apparently I stepped in and I'm like, do I ever swap back? Like, I don't know what that looks like. So I found that very interesting.
Wow, like a walk-in soul for yourself.
Yeah, yeah, because their souls are all aligned into one soul. And I didn't realize that. I thought, and then like the leader of all of it is the higher self, right? And she's like working, orchestrating with us all. But yeah, I had no idea. I was like, well, that makes so much sense, like why I felt so alien to this life. I thought it was just being a starseed, but it turns out it's because I'm not actually from this time, which is crazy.
Wow. Wow.
That's
Please write a book just about that because that is so incredibly fascinating. And I'm so happy and so grateful for you and just who you are and that was able to take place. And it just goes to show like miraculous solutions are always possible, even if that means your soul from a different timeline is just going to drop in and save the day. Wow, that's amazing. That's amazing.
Thank you. I feel like yours are incredible. I have so many more questions. I, as well, would love to talk about a set of the infinite versions of ourselves. Tell me about your galactic grandfather. How does it work? Where was he from? What did he teach you?
Uh, he was adopted. His grandmother was Cherokee. He was from Michigan, was very artistic, a very, 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 very old soul who just wanted to be making his indigenous art and playing his guitar and not worried about any worldly things. And he was working at General Motors. And one day, a colleague came in, I guess, and said he had been channeling this multi-dimensional being. So this was in the 70s. And I think my grandfather had always been interested in the stars, interested in the bigger questions. And so they started having these monthly or weekly channeling groups. I still have some printed materials from those groups, channelings from the specific guide. I don't remember the name, but it's all about unity consciousness, right? But using a lot of religious terms, but they talk about the Great White Brotherhood, but channeling this information in the way that it was most accessible to the collective in the 1970s is how I think about it. I have a necklace that I wear often that's like an R. It looks like an R in a gold circle with a cross behind it. And that was their symbol of their group. And the law of one materials, the raw materials, those scientists, those books came out in the 80s, and those scientists pulled someone from what was called the Detroit group to help them learn how to channel. So this group my grandfather was a part of helped those researchers learn how to communicate with extraterrestrials. And my mom recalls a time when he said that like a weekend he was unavailable because Viv from Venus was visiting and she couldn't drive and he had to drive her around. And my mom remembers going to see Close Encounters of the Third Kind with him. It's like a very happy memory she has with him. So, right. So he died when I was very young. So sometimes I think I have memories of him, but I don't think that I really do. And now he's some kind of messenger through the cosmos and just continuing to learn and fly around throughout the many, many, many dimensions. So there is this, connection to channeling to the galactic environment, and also a deep connection to the indigenous wisdom of the Cherokee people of the land, which I've channeled. This particular group were from Tennessee originally, so I have a really big calling to go to the Smoky Mountains and do a retreat there, maybe just a solo retreat first. But so that's where all that I think I get that interest from, as well as my own experiences in my own past lives. But as we know, there's no accidents with our lineages.
Oh my God. Yeah, that's so cool. What a cool grandfather to have. Wow. And do you know what his starseed background was?
I don't. I've never actually looked into it, although even as we're talking, I'm just seeing Orion in really, really, really big letters. So I'm guessing that's most of it, which I also feel very strongly for myself too.
Yeah, that was my next question. Do you know where you're from? So you've got Orion, and what else? Anything else?
I think a little bit of everything. Basically, I connect very strongly with Lyrans. I connect very strongly with Agarthans. I do connect with Arcturians, and Assyrian is the other one that's very strong. I've been really connecting with more of my Andromedan roots this year, so that's been coming online a little bit more. I don't seem to have, I work with the Pleiadians sometimes. I don't think I have any lineages from there, which is interesting because my mom does, and she's like very close to the Pleiadians. And I also work with about 12 of the different races. I certainly don't work with all of the ones that are out there, but the major ones are Syrian, Orion, Andromedan, Lyran, and Agarthan.
No, I've heard of Agarthan before, you know.
Mm. Oh, they're Earth star seeds.
Oh, wow. That's so awesome. I'm going to go Google this after.
Yeah, you'll go down a great rabbit hole. I'm excited for you. Send me a DM.
My favorite kind of hole, you know.
Me too.
We totally this anyway. And have you ever had any like darker encounters with like the star seeds or ETs or races?
I have never had an experience where I encountered darker energy in where I've let something in. I've definitely had some freaky experiences with a Ouija board with more dense spiritual entities and being very sensitive of there are certain places that if I go, I'll start to get a little nauseous, a little heady, and I know how to protect myself in those spaces. Um, but I have felt pretty profoundly protected in my spiritual journey from having experiences like that. I also, what's been big for me, especially the last 2 years, has been a lot of downloads where I was a more negatively polarized being, or where I was an impressor or cruel in that experience. So my relationship with darker starseed energies has been being open enough to reconcile my own experiences in those lifetimes.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, that's been coming through for me as well recently. It's like how many lives I've been dark and enjoyed it. And even now, sometimes find it hard to be of the light. Like, it's very tempting for me to go back to the dark because I think of it as fun. But it's not like
Mm,
good or bad, right? For me, because I think those are human constructs. But I say this to my friends all the time because I've got like 4 planets in Scorpio. Not that Scorpio is dark, but like certainly speaks to that level of fuckery that I was involved with. But even now, if someone annoys me, I'm like, what I would do to help, what I would do to send a familial curse, and I fucking enjoy it. But I don't do it. I choose the light. And my friends are always like, Daddy, don't you do it? Yeah, but so it's like not going back to that. Sometimes,
right.
like a Disney villain, I feel like they very much enjoy the villainy,
Right, right.
you know.
I love that you give yourself space to enjoy it, though. You fantasize about it in a healthy way, but you wouldn't do anything. You wouldn't do anything with it.
That it really sucks. Like, but I'm a light worker and shit. I love
I
helping.
know.
Right. No, I do enjoy it. What does being a light worker mean to you? And when did you come across that term?
Hmm. I probably came across that term for the first time in 2020 or 2021.
Mm.
And to me, it means someone who is awakened uh, to having a purpose on this planet, to knowing that they are here to transmute what is denser into what is serving us without spiritually bypassing things, while not judging the shadows, but embracing the shadows as a part of the light, but feel very strongly that their mission, however that is manifest, whether as a professional healer or a teacher or a nurse or, running a daycare or an artist or, any way, that they are consciously bringing more light to the people of this planet and to the planet itself.
Yeah. Yeah. And on that note, I know that you have been like, what's his name from the Avengers? The guy, which I know his name. You're like the dude who's kind of like assembling the light workers for an amazing Lightworker Summit. Can you tell us about that?
Yes, I absolutely can. And I have felt for a long time that my calling was to create a network, was to bring people together in community, both my clients and other spiritual leaders. And for a couple years now, I've wanted to put some kind of summit together. I'm so blessed with the other healers I have met in the online space, really, and present company absolutely included in that. And to be able to bring us all together, these healers that I respect, that I know are really grounded, that I know are not bypassing things, and that I've trusted and worked with and learned from and been inspired with, and to bring us all together into one container was just so exciting for me. And this happened to be the right time. Everything always happens at the right time. And so December 6th, 7th, and 8th of this year, just this coming weekend, we are doing 3 days of spiritual workshops with incredible, incredible healers. And I'm just so delighted to be a part of it, to host it, that so many people said yes, that you said yes, that we're all going to be sharing our medicine and just like clear quartz, just amplifying each other. So there'll be 4 different sessions a day. They'll all be recorded so people can watch them in their own time or rewatch when they want to. And we have, of course, astrologers. We have channelers. We have meditators. We have medicine women. We're doing a self-love workshop. We're going to do tapping, a prismatic heart connection, dream work. I'm going to be teaching a class on connecting with Isis, Mother Mary, and Kuan Yin. I have a friend who is has her graduate degree in yogic studies. She's going to be doing an immersive Mother Crone activation. And there's really something for everyone at a price point that is not to be missed. So it's going to be such an incredible vortex of transformation and practical tools, and just being in communion with each other in of itself is going to be incredibly potent magic. And I just can't wait for it to start.
I know, it's such a great idea. I really love it. And I really love the people that you've put together. And I don't know about you, but like in my community, I'm always getting people like being like, I want to learn more about like all the different aspects of healing modalities and furthering consciousness. And because I feel like elevating and furthering are 2 different paradigms of working with consciousness. And if you want to access a level of knowledge that you've not been able to anticipate before, but in easily digestible ways, I feel like this summit is a no-brainer, and bringing everyone together in the way that you did, I think it's just going to be game-changing. So if anybody wants to sign up for this, and this podcast is going up today, then it starts in 4 days. On the 6th, yeah, it's the second day tomorrow, so maybe it's 5 days for you guys in LA.
Right.
Hi. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put the link in bio for you guys all to sign up, and like there's just so many amazing things on offer, and I can't wait to share this with you all and hang out with all these other cool healers and consciousness elevators. So I love it, and I really wanted to get it because I know people talk about this stuff at the end, but let's slot this in before, because we've got other stuff to talk about, but everyone needs to attend this. It's so achievable with the price point as well. Was it $55?
Yeah.
I mean, it's basically free. Do you know what I mean? Like, go and get yourself there. You want to elevate your consciousness, want to give to yourself. And if you can't do it, get it as an early birthday for next year, Christmas present, all the things. So
Yeah.
you need to do it. I love that. Well, thank you for putting it together. I'm so excited. Aggressively so. Switching gears a little bit, who outside of your family has been really influential on your journey, specifically with spirituality?
Abraham Hicks continues to be a very important teacher of mine. Radiates has gotten me through some really dark times. I went to a workshop that was out here in LA, and I got to meet him, and I just cried and cried and cried and cried and cried. So that he was for a long time very, very important teacher for me. And I'm trying to think who else is really, for a long time, Marianne Williamson was a really important teacher of mine in my early years, in her like early publications. I really resonated with that a lot. Dolores Cannon, of course, has just been so instrumental for so many of us. And Robert E. Detzler, who channeled the SRT material, also, I feel him kind of floating in and out as a guide for me sometimes as I continue to share that material with other people. I'm just looking at my bookshelf. Oh, and Ted Andrews. Oh, Ted Andrews. I can't forget Ted Andrews. Ted Andrews wrote Animal Speak, which is one of my go-to books on animal medicine. But he's also, written books on the Kabbalah. He wrote this book called Enchantment of the Fairy Realm, which was one of my first resources for understanding the realms of the Fae. And he's written about numerology. And so many different things. He was a really, really awakened being. So it definitely can't forget to give Ted Andrews some credit there too.
Oh my God, I've got work to do. There's two people I didn't know there. I think I don't know Robert and I didn't know Ted, so I
Mm.
didn't get to know them.
Mhm.
Thank you for sharing. And when you've been on this journey, like we've talked about some of the good things, like what have been some of the challenges that you've had since, running this business full time or being on your spiritual journey?
Mm. I've been very fortunate that because of the way I was raised, I've always been pretty comfortable talking about my spiritual journey and talking about spirituality. So I'm blessed that the feeling of coming out of the spiritual closet, so to speak, wasn't a big contrast that I experienced. But in terms of business and entrepreneurship and blending my spirituality, with my way to make money, I'm very honest with that. I've always been very ambitious and I'm learning how to channel that in healthier ways. And it's very easy for me to get obsessive about my business. And I'm grateful I have a really loving and compassionate and understanding partner who will very kindly let me know when I'm going off the deep end a little bit and getting better and better at bringing myself back to that. I have a lot of self-punishment programs that I'm continuing to work through, which makes sense as I look at my Akashic journey and I see these lifetimes where I've, done these things that have not been from a loving place. And so I still work through wanting to make things harder than they need to be and giving myself space to be in pleasure and be in even more joy. And also, my name is Faith for a reason. I'm not exempt from everyone who's really learning how to cultivate and really, really rely on their faith, really knowing and trusting that somehow, some way, everything is always working out for us. And that even the really, 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 really painful shit is pushing us and giving us the opportunity to ask for help, to start new changes or implement new habits or new techniques to get ourselves in the space where we can hear and see and know the divine that is moving throughout us all the time.
That's really beautiful. I love that. You're so good. I know like you professionally speak, but you're so good at it. Like it's so eloquent the way that you put things together. I'm like, you just woman bloody TED talk, you know?
I'm ready. I'm ready. Send them my way. Send them my way.
I honestly think we need our own version of TED Talk, though, which is obviously what the Lightworker Summit is. But you know what I mean? Like, I've been thinking about like, what's an even better version? Because I feel like they were really good for a time, but evolution is needed.
I'm so on board for that because I've definitely thought about wanting to look into doing a TEDx talk or a TED talk, but I'm like, I can't really talk about what I want to talk about on a TED stage. Like, they're not fucking ready for that. So I think like a cosmic, Betty talk or whatever we're going to call it is, I mean, the time is right. The time is right.
Or is it the Lightworker Summit and you're just doing that in like multinational? Because like when Lightworker, I mean, Cosmic sure covers things, but Lightworker also covers things.
That's true. It does. All right. We'll talk.
Yeah, too.
Stay tuned, everyone.
I love that we're doing light and yet still trying to act a little evil. I'm always trying. And if your life was a book, what would the title of this current chapter be?
What a great question. Peace through pleasure.
Ooh, that's good. And that's kind of like what you've just been saying, like what you want
Yeah.
to get more into. Do you find yourself more in peace now, or are you still working towards feeling that mostly?
Even just in the last couple weeks, I've been kind of doubling down on some of my practices. It's been a chaotic time here in the United States and really wanting to be able to show up for people. It's really important for me. So I've really had to process my own, my own stuff. And so it's really been new peace is being experienced for me in new ways, and new pleasure is being experienced for me in new ways. And I've been hesitant to really believe that is the way, that slowing down, is the way to more of everything. And it's getting integrated in my cells and my body now, how true that really is. So, yes, I'm surprised to answer. Yes, I've been experiencing more peace, but it is true. But it is true.
Yeah, that's so nice. And what gives you pleasure and peace outside of your work? Like, do you have hobbies? Like, what do you do?
I love to read. I'm such a reader. And I also love to spend time outside. I live in California. It's just beautiful here. I'm living close to the mountains now, and didn't know how much that was going to affect me. But being close to the mountains and spending more time in the mountains has been really, really, really important. I really love a good paint by number. And I'm working on one that my mom got me for my birthday of the Smoky Mountains. So that's been really fun. And I love, my husband is a professional jazz musician. So I love to go hear him play, which is always really fun. And we play board games together too. So we have a lot of fun with our different board games we like to
Well,
play.
that's so cool. What's your favorite board game?
So there's actually a game called Pandemic that is really fun.
Okay.
It's good because it's a collaborative game, so you're not playing against each other. We found that I historically have gotten a little competitive when we played against each other, so it was good for us to have collaborative games. And during the lockdowns, we went to Target to get a board game, and there were none left, like except for 12 copies of this game, which was called Pandemic, that nobody understandably wanted to buy. And we bought it and we loved it. And now we still play it all the time. And Yahtzee. We also play a lot of Yahtzee in our house.
Yeah. I didn't even know there was collaborative board games. I've only ever known competitive.
Oh, it's another whole rabbit hole you could go down. It's very exciting.
Well, damn, I'm not getting any work done today. I'm just going down several bloody holes.
Pleasure, peace through pleasure, peace through pleasure,
P to the P. Bring the
P to the P, P to the
Bring the
B.
profit. And what is something that people don't know about you that would surprise them?
Ooh, probably that I also have a pretty dark side. And I think I also have 3 or 4 placements in Scorpio. And it's been a year of me embracing that and coming to terms with that and just really learning to love that about myself. And I continue to have to do a lot of work around a default of depression. And that's, as you know, it's like a constant thing. You just have to check in and you have to know what your practices are. And so it's very important to me that my clients and my community feel seen and feel understood, because I'm like, I'm not any different than you. I've maybe been doing this a little bit longer, but all the pain that you know and that you feel and the resistance and maybe even the guilt that you may have around some of these darker feelings, like I get it. And I'm here to help you, love yourself anyway, and to identify what tools you need, and also what we can do in the Akasha, what we can do in the chakra system and the organs, what guides we can talk to help it get easier and easier to stay ahead of those default, neurons firing that put you in that dark place. But I know the light and I know play, and I am working with the fairy realm and my inner child. She is skipping along, but I've got other archetypes too who are also sitting at the table, and I would be lying and misleading people if I made it sound like I was in this, supercharged place. all the time, and I might never be. And I'm totally okay with that at this
Yeah.
point.
Embracing all parts.
Yeah.
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 Have you ever heard of that book, The Emotion Code?
No, but I think I saw you post about it just the other day and I was piqued. Is this the rabbit hole I should go down?
Oh my God, it's life changing for depression. It's incredible. Like, I'm going through a lot of changes in my business at the moment that have thrown me into like the deepest depressions in the last few weeks. And essentially, you use muscle testing, which for those that don't know is like working with the subconscious, which is always like taking in information to understand. Like, and you can basically ask yes or no questions with it. And in this book, it gives you a chart of different emotions, 2 columns, and you use muscle testing to be like, say, with the depression, like, is there a deeper core root emotion that I need to be aware of? And then you'd be like, is it in column A? And you say test yes or no. Is it in rows 1 to 3? Yes or no. Is it in row 2? And then in row 2, in column A, there's like, say, anger, guilt, depression. And then you go through each one to understand what the emotion is. Then use a motherfucking magnet on your forehead. And you basically, because all emotions have an electromagnetic frequency. So you use the magnet to attract them out, and you say, I remove anxiety, or I let go of anxiety, I let go of anxiety. And the physical changes in your body is insane. Like, so it's got me through some very tumultuous up and downs, like in the last 6 months. I highly recommend it. And it's instant.
Wow, this feels totally aligned. Muscle testing is something I believe in that I've been practicing for a really long time. So I love it. Just seems like it pulls together all these things that I believe in and that I do. So, oh, yep. All right, sign me up. Yep, done buying that
Oh,
book.
great.
Soon as
Yeah.
we log off.
And if you don't even want to buy the book, I mean, obviously we're into supporting authors and it'll tell you more about it. But there's the charts online. So if you just type in like emotion code chart,
Oh,
you can just get to it straight away and start on it. And it's just good for any part. It's good for like physical ailments as well. So it's like, if you've got a headache, you can look at the emotion behind the headache. And then it's like, what if you took it a step further and started working with it on limiting beliefs? So like, I'm really good at helping other people manifest their money. But for me, money can be quite tricky sometimes. Like I'll either have loads of it or it's like back out. And so I started using ChatGPT to create loads of identifying money blocks, putting them into my own charts and muscle testing with that to remove with a magnet too. And it's just like wild. Highly recommend it.
wow. Oh, that sounds amazing.
You'll love it.
Wow. Oh,
Really
yeah.
helpful. Yeah.
Wow. Very cool. Oh, I'm really excited. I'm like really excited by that. Thank you so much.
You are very welcome. You have to let me know how you go. And sort of like final question before we get into how people can work with you. What do you want people to take away from your work in terms of legacy, and how do you want your journey to inspire
Mm, I think I would like my journey to inspire others to um to prove that you can create a loving, fun, creative, fulfilling life no matter where you come from or what you've experienced. There is no trauma so big that if you are willing, you can find the healing that you need to live a peaceful existence.
them?
And I really hope that people are inspired from my work to not take this work too seriously. I think that's really important, that we see a lot of people in the spiritual community who put themselves on a pedestal or put others on a pedestal and just, it's like if you're talking about spirituality, it better be serious and you better not swear. And I just don't subscribe to any of that. I'm very encouraging of people to find what feels right for them. Like you get to cherry pick from all of these different modalities and techniques to blend what feels good for you. And that if you keep doing whatever, if you keep staying on the path, if you keep trying, if you keep consistent, your external world will change. It will change. And I think that my work really promotes how everything is connected. Nothing comes from a vacuum. You can't, treat your headache and not your money blocks and not your relationship with your mom and not how you feel about your body. It's all connected, as well as our right and our past life experiences. And so I think that what my work does is inspire people to expand their minds and believe in limitless possibilities.
Wow. That's a beautiful way to finish. And on that note, like, how can people work with you and how are you working with people at the moment and where can they find you?
They can check out my website, faithstrenghealing.com. I am very active on Instagram and YouTube. I'm currently taking one-on-one clients. I'm taking 3-month psychic development mentees if you're looking for an even more intensive healing and coaching and expansive experience. And I host retreats. So I'll be hosting a retreat at the end of next March, 2025 in Mount Shasta, which will be a sound healing and soul channeling retreat, which the more I'm learning about Mount Shasta, I'm like, this is going to be crazy. This is going to be so amazing. So I am really, really, really looking forward to that as well.
That's so exciting. I've heard crazy things about other people that have done retreats at Mount Shasta, like the aliens that come to work with
Yeah.
you as well. So like that's a whole other ball game. I love it.
We'll have to do another podcast after that retreat.
Yeah. I'd be like, tell me about the aliens. What happened?
Yeah.
Tell me about
Yeah.
the portal.
Oh,
So good. Oh, well, thank you so much for hanging out with me here and taking us through your journey. It's been so lovely. So everybody, don't forget to sign up for the Lightworker Summit. I'm going to put the link in the podcast description. And I'm also obviously going to put all your links in there. And yeah, just thank you so much.
thank you so much. This has been so joyful and pleasurable. So fucking anytime, like literally anytime.
Let's go. I love it. Thank you.